Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Today we're going back to ancient Rome again, and we're going to talk about Roman helmets. 753. The Italian peninsula is starting to give birth to one of the greatest civilizations. The eternal city of Roma was born. As we examine this amazing and fascinating history, as we try to understand Roman history, starting from Epoca Regia, so from its kingdom, going all the way through the 5 centuries of Res Publica, and then starting to dive into the Imperium Romanum, we do ask ourselves, how could this little town sprout into one of the largest and most populated empires of human history? Well, definitely one of their advantages and one of their secrets was the kind of equipment and the organization of their armies, the legionis, or legionis, if we want to use ecclesiastical pronunciation. In the ancient times, most barbarians and most armies weren't particularly organized. Only chieftains and leaders would have armor or any kind of very, very specific equipment. Most soldiers would only have axes and some kinds of swords or some kinds of weapons, spears probably, but not much defensive equipment, not much armor, maybe a helmet occasionally. But that was not the case of Roman forces. The legionis or legionis would have, as I have already talked about in another video, the armor. Roman legions did have armor, and I have already made a video about lorica segmentata or lorica laminata. If you haven't seen that video, please have a look. It's about the Roman armor, the cuirass. But today I would like to talk about helmets in general. The topic of Roman helmets is an incredibly deep and wide topic, and the reason is that when we talk about Roman history, we're talking about a time span so huge that the modifications and the many variations of styles, even when we only talk about helmets, are so many that it would be almost virtually impossible to make one video about all these helmets. So today I'm not going to talk about in details about all the helmets, but each single helmet. But I'm going to do more of a general video, a general idea on how helmets were during Roman era. Because again, we go from 753, the official date of the foundation of Rome, to 1453, which is the date of the fall of the Eastern Roman Empire, also known with the name of Byzantine Empire. Now, there were mainly 4 kinds of helmets used by the Romans over this very long span of time. The first one being the Montefortino helmet, the Coolus helmet or Coolus helmet, the Imperial Gallic, and the Imperial Italic. Now, the first one, the Montefortino helmet, was a helmet that was used from the 4th century before Christ until, roughly speaking, the 1st century before Christ. Now, it was a very simple helmet, and it would be made of either brass or iron. We can see, as we look at these kind of helmets, particularly the archaeological discoveries, we can easily see the Etruscan and Corinthian, or at least Greek, influence over Roman warfare technology. The second kind of helmet, the Coolus or Coolus helmet, is already getting a shape which is closer to the popular the popularized image of a Roman helmet. But as you can see, it has a shorter and smaller back area, particularly if you compare it to these kind of helmets. Now, this helmet that you see here is a Imperial Gallic. Now, the Coolus helmet was probably used from the 3rd century before Christ to the 1st century before Christ. The Imperial Gallic instead, when we talk about this kind of helmet here, which is probably one of the most popular, we are talking about the late 1st century before Christ to the early 2nd century Anno Domini. So just to put it into perspective, it is very probable that the kind of helmet that the Roman soldiers during the time of Christ were using would have been either an Imperial Gallic or an Imperial Italic, but my take is probably one of these. Because the Imperial Italic would instead be used from the 1st century before Christ to the early 3rd century after Christ, or Anno Domini. Now with these two kind of helmets we can see that the back plate has become bigger, stronger. Now one of the reasons for that, if you can see the model over here, is obviously to grant a double layer protection to the back and the neck of the soldier. And also because in most cases when you're about to get hit in the head, one of the easiest and most natural things that you tend to do is to turn your head. And as you do that, the back plate becomes a side plate, which is going to protect your upper torso area from blows. Another characteristics of the Imperial Gallic are these eyebrows. Now, the Imperial Gallic helmet is a kind of helmet that started to be developed after the Gallic War. So we're talking about the period of Julius Caesar or Julius Caesar. The very interesting thing that we have to say about these helmets is the fact that we have this popularized image of Roman soldiers wearing crests, you know, the red crests. Was this historical or was it not? Well, the topic of the crests is an interesting one. Well, first of all, did they really have crests? Yes, they did. But there were two kinds of crests. Now, we have the crests which would go this way, okay, and the horizontal ones. I'm sure you have seen both kinds of crests. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of these two. So as you can see, the one up here above is the one with the crest just going all the way through the length of the helmet, and then the other one will be the one that goes horizontally over the helmet. Now, the second one, the horizontal kind of crest, would be the crest worn by centurions. It was used during battles, and centurions used it so that all other soldiers could immediately identify their leaders and those who they needed to follow. All right? So it was very important to mark ranks. The other way of putting the crest instead was used by normal standard soldiers. But it was never used during battle. It was only used, or soldiers, legionnaires, were only allowed to wear their crests during parades, for instance. So that's a big difference, and sometimes there's a misunderstanding, particularly coming from games occasionally. So that's just to clarify things from a historical point of view. So again, horizontal crests were for centurions and were used during battle. The vertical crests instead were not used during battle, and they belonged to standard soldiers, legionnaires. So these crests could be made of horsehair or feather, for example, and most of the times they would be horsehair. So the next question is, why did the Romans have an open-faced helmet? Now, the Romans did have the technology to create fully closed helmets. Okay, one of the easiest, perhaps most common misunderstandings of ancient history is the idea of closed helmets being only a medieval or late medieval, only a medieval kind of technology, whereas in ancient times perhaps they didn't have that technology, and so they just made open-faced helmets. Now that's not the case, and the proof to that is you just need, and to have a proof of that, of what I am saying, you just need to go and have a look at the Gladiators helmets, for example the Thracian helmet, or the one about the Thracian helmet, and many others, as you can see in the pictures here. They are fully closed helmets. So if they did have this kind of technology, why did they not use it in battle? Why did they choose open-faced helmets? Well, the reason is quite simple. Roman warfare and battleground tactics and techniques were based on many different factors. But obviously, probably the two most important points were discipline and following orders. Now, in order to follow orders, you needed to be able to hear them, and that's why all Roman helmets, the ones belonging to troops that were supposed to go to battle, would have openings for the ears. Now, this is something that the Romans took from the Greek, because also the Greeks did that with the Corinthian helmet, which, as I have explained in another video specifically made about that helmet, it was, the early models were closed, and then we have the open ones. But the Romans seemed to always have had this very, very important idea, if you will, of this very, very important concept, if you will, of hearing commands. So that was the main thing. And also vision was vital, dramatically important. Now, there aren't a lot of manuals and treatises that talk about the importance of hearing commands, but just by looking at the helmets we can get there. I think we can get the point, just as a matter of deductive logic. So again, being able to hear your commands and being able to see your enemy. Now, one of the questions that I am asked often is, why are these so movable, the plates for the cheeks? Why are they not fixed? Why are they not blocked? Well, they didn't really need to be, and if you think about it, in a good replica, you would also have holes over here, and they would use a lace, most of the times made of leather, to keep them closed. And when they would, so as you would wear it, so while wearing this, there would be no chance that these will move that much, and after wearing it, it would make it very easy to carry. Also, because you need to consider the Roman soldiers, most of the times during march, they wouldn't wear these, they would just hang them, and they would be, resting on their bosoms during the whole march, all right, and then they would carry their shields on the back. So this would make it a lot easier to carry. Alright, as I've said, I will make other videos specifically for each kind of Roman helmet, as there are so many things that we could say that probably I would end up making a 2 hours long video. So I'm just going to make small, maybe 15 minutes videos for each kind of helmet, and I will use each, and I will show you all the helmets and then do some wearing time. So probably the first one will be the Imperial Gallic. I will try to give you as many information as possible about this helmet, but for this first video about the Roman helmets in general, I think that these informations will be enough. If you have other questions or things you would like to talk about the Roman helmets, about Roman helmets in general, please tell me in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, as always, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.